In the first segment of this presentation, I was talking the different way switch do traffic on a network and the way router does traffic between networks. So what I said in the previous segment, I said switch direct data, direct traffic between device connected to the same network. But any data that is leaving the network to another network has to pass through the router. So this is the router that does traffic between networks. I said the switch use MAC address to connect computer together, and the router use IP address to connect computer from different networks. Now, can the router do that alone? No. The IP address have two components. One is the network ID, and the other part is the host ID. So, let me go to that presentation, to that slide. So let me continue with my explanation. I said the IP address is the unique address of a computer in a network. So I said the IP address have two components. One is the network ID, and the other component is the host ID. In a network, all computers in the same network will have the same network ID. What makes the IP address unique is because each device on the network will have a different host ID. Like, suppose I have something like 192.168.1.40. That's an IP address. 192.168.1.40. I can have another computer that have an IP address 192.168.1.20. I can have another one that have an IP address 192.168.1.21. What you can see, one is 192.168.1.14. Another one is 192.168.1.20. One is 192.168.1.21. What is the difference between those three? 14, 20, 21. So this is the part that represent the host ID. So this is the host ID that make the IP address unique. But if you look at that, all of them has 192.168.1. This is the part that represent the network ID. So the IP address is composed of two components, the network ID and the host ID. Now, I was talking about the subnet mask. What is the subnet mask? The subnet mask is a set of 255 numbers and zeros. So what happens is, if I put 255, that 255, that 0, that 0, that explains the network ID for this network is not 192.168.1. The subnet mask is the technology that allow you to separate the network ID and the host ID. So in this case, with a subnet mask like this, I would say 192 is the network ID. If I have a subnet mask that is like this, 255.255.0.0, now because of that subnet mask, the whole thing changed. Now, because the 255 fall here, the network ID will be 192.168, which is a different network, because this network ID is different from that network ID. If I have a subnet mask that is 255.255.255.0, that means all the three first octet are part of the network ID. In this case, the network ID will be 192.168.1. Because anytime there is a 0, that represents the host ID. The 0 will represent the host ID, and the 255 represent the network ID. So all you have to do is to line up the set of 255 in the need of the network ID, and you can use that to separate the network ID piece from the host ID piece. So a network, you cannot just look at an IP address and say this portion is the network ID and this portion is the host ID. What tool you have to use to separate the network ID from the host ID is the subnet mask. It is very important. So the only thing that I want you to remember, in a local area network, the payload or the container that have the data is called a frame. And in that frame, you find three labels. The first label is the MAC ID, the MAC address of the sending computer, and the MAC address of the receiving computer. Then the payload is the portion that have the small piece of data. And after that, there is a sequence number. This is the technology that will tell the receiving computer, this is how you going to put this data together. It is like you buy a puzzle. When you go home, it's come with an instruction that tell you how to put that puzzle together to get what you expect to have. So this is the analogy used in networking to make sure data, the switch can connect computer together. And the other thing that I said, they don't call it a frame in a wide area network. Every time you need the router to do the traffic, you will use a packet. The same way they frame as the MAC address of the sending computer and the MAC address of the receiving computer. The packet have the IP address of the sending computer and the IP address of the receiving computer. So when the radar receive a packet, the radar analyze the packet, check the packet to find out what is the IP address. If the IP address of the sending computer is different from the IP address of the receiving computer, this is the time the radar will decide to move the data, the packet forward to the other network. So switch do traffic in a local area network, and the radar do the traffic in a wide area network. Now, when the radar figure out that this data does not belong to this network, is going to another network, what the radar does, the radar send this data in the gateway. The gateway always have the host IP 1. The host ID for the gateway always 1. So for a network like this that have an IP address 192.168.1.14, the gateway will be 192.168.1.1, because the gateway always have the host ID 1. So I said the subnet mask allows the radar to separate the network ID portion of the IP address with the host ID portion of the IP address. The gateway is the IP where all the packets have to go through to leave the network. So every time the radar identify that a packet is supposed to go outside the network, it will send it to the gateway. So the configuration will include those three address. One is the IP address, second is the subnet mask, and third is the gateway. But we have also the DNS. So in the next segment of the presentation, I'm going to talk about DNS.